नारायण गोसाई महाराज श्री गुरुदेव की जय। नित्य प्रविष्ट विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शतश्रीमद श्री भक्तिवेदांत वामन गोसाई महाराज की जय। नित्य प्रविष्ट विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शतश्रीमद श्री भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्य प्रविष्ट विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शतश्रीमद श्री भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोसाई महाराज की जय। नित्य प्रविष्ट विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शतश्रीमद श्री भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोसाई प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्य प्रविष्ट महाभागवत श्री गोरक्षरस बाबाजी महाराज की जय। नित्य प्रविष्ट श्री सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। नित्य प्रविष्ट वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथ दास बाबाजी महाराज की जय। श्री रूप गौरी गुरु वर्ग की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्टदास रघुनाथ शार गोसाई प्रभु की जय। श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामानंदारी श्री गौर पार्षद वृंद की जय। नाम अक्षय श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल ब्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदात गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जय। श्री यमुना देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योग माया की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री अक्षय तृतीया की जय। श्री परशुराम जयंती की जय। श्री बद्री नारायण गेट ओपनिंग की जय। श्री चंद्रन यात्रा की जय। श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा सुदर्शन चक्र जू की जय। श्री श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन श्री गौरी वेदांत समिति की जय। Gaudi Vedanta Samiti's 80th anniversary of being established. Jai. Shri Hari Nam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. All right, where are we? Still Mangalacharan. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Vedanta Narayaniti Namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam Pravrajantam Anupetam Apeta Krityam Dvaipayano Virahaka Tara Arjuhava Putreti Tanmayataya Taravobhine Dustang Sarvabhuta Hridaya Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskrityam Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Shrinvatang Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridantasto Yabhadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam Nashta Prayeshvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Tavai Vasmi Na Jivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayamam Charanantikam Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshaya Kshiptastakama Ditaranga Madhye Kripa Maitam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam. Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Dandavat pranams, Gargaraji, Madhavi Didi, Rup Manjari Didi, Indira Mataji, and whoever else is out there. I can't see, it just says Facebook user, but Dandavat pranams to whoever that is. I'll check later on the Gaudiya Kirtan live page. Dandavat pranams. And happy Akshaya Tritiya, yes. All right, so let's read. This is what we read yesterday. Oh, 1 second. Let's back up a little bit. So Pṛthu Mahārāja, let's back up a little bit. Pṛthu Mahārāja makes these beautiful prayers to the Lord, very beautiful prayers. I want to memorize some of them if I ever get time. And then he says, "Great devotees render devotional service unto you, who destroy the illusions of material existence. They have no reason to take your shelter, except to constantly remember your lotus feet. Your words ask for a benediction, and the allurements you offer in the Vedas are certainly bewildering to the people in general, who thus engage in karma repeatedly. Ignorant living beings in this world, forgetful of their real constitutional position, always desire material happiness. Therefore, please bestow upon me whatever you think is best for me, without asking, just like a father acts for the benefit of his son." Then the Lord says, "May you have bhakti to me. Only by such purity of purpose as you yourself intelligently expressed can one cross over my insurmountable maya." Note, Pṛthu requested for the most beneficial thing. The Lord awarded bhakti, which concludes that nothing but bhakti is the most beneficial. "Execute my orders carefully, and don't be misled by anything. Anyone who carries out my orders faithfully will always find good fortune." The Lord appreciated the meaningful prayers of Pṛthu, and after being properly worshipped, blessed him and decided to leave. Then Pṛthu worshipped the demigods, sages, pitris, gandharvas, siddhas, charanas, and others, with his sweet words and wealth, thinking of them as representatives of the Lord. Then all of them returned to their abodes. The Lord, who captivated the minds of the kings and priests, also returned. Although not an object of material vision, the Lord revealed himself to Pṛthu. Pṛthu offered obeisances to the Lord and returns to his home. And this is what we read yesterday. To receive Pṛthu Mahārāja, the city was very beautifully decorated with pearls, garlands, cloth, golden gates, unbroken fruits, wetted grains, minerals, lamps, etc. The entire city was perfumed with fragrant incense and water. As Pṛthu entered the city gate, he was received by the citizens with many auspicious articles like lamps and flowers. He was also received by many beautifully ornamented unmarried girls. When he entered the palace, conches and kettle drums sounded, priests chanted mantras, and reciters offered prayers. Despite all this, the king was not proud. After being welcomed both by the important and common citizens, the satisfied king bestowed them with their desired blessings. Great King Pṛthu performed many glorious activities while ruling over the earth and achieved widespread fame. At last, he obtained the lotus feet of the Lord, the Param Padam. Vidura requests to hear more about Pṛthu's activities. Then Sutta Goswami says to Shaunak Rishi and all the other sages there. After hearing, do I have noise suppression turned on? 1 second, just want to make sure, because the kirtan's pretty loud outside. I don't. I'll black it out. Okay, so Sutta Goswami said to Shaunak Rishi, after hearing Maitreya speak about Pṛthu, the original king, the Adi Rajasya, who is all qualified, famous, and widely praised. After hearing the original king, Vidura submissively inquired from Maitreya as follows. Sorry, guys. Kirtan's distracting for me. Pṛthu was enthroned by the sages and was given various gifts by the demigods. He also received Vishnu's strength in his arms, with which he milked the earth. Even today, the kings and demigods of the many planets still sustain on the desirable remnants produced by his valiant action of milking the earth. What intelligent person would not hear about him? Please tell me more about his auspicious activities. So I guess... Okay, so I guess now... anyhow. Alright. I guess this is Maitreya speaking now? Yes, it is. Oh my god. I just didn't look at this up here, so I got confused. Okay, so Maitreya describes Pṛthu's role, bodily features, and speech. King Pṛthu happily lived in a tract of land between the Ganga and Yamuna, thinking himself to be exhausting the results of his previous pious activities. Note, Pṛthu Mahārāja was a Shaktivesh avatar, and hence beyond Prarabdha karma. Thus the terms pious and impious activities are not applicable to him. Only out of humility did he consider himself an ordinary conditioned soul. He was an unrivaled king, with dominion over all the 7 islands. No one could supersede his orders, except the Brahmins and the Vaishyas. Once King Pṛthu initiated the performance of a great sacrifice, in which great Rajarshis, Brahmarshis, and demigods all assembled. There he worshipped all the respectable visitors according to their respective positions. Then he stood up in that assembly like the moon amongst the stars. Tall and sturdy, broad arms, fair complexion, red lustrous eyes, beautiful nose, beautiful face, smile with beautiful teeth, broad chest, large waist, abdomen like a banyan leaf with 3 lines, deep coiled navel, golden colored thighs, arched instep, fine black curly slick hair, conch-like neck, and wearing valuable cloth. That was his bodily features. For performing sacrifice, he put aside his dress and wore a black deerskin and a ring of kusha grass on his finger. Thus his natural bodily beauty was visible. To encourage and enhance the pleasure of the assembled members, Pṛthu Mahārāja glanced over the assembly and spoke to them in a great voice. And then verse 20 this is what we finished on. It was the 7 qualities of Pṛthu's speech. His speech was beautiful, flowery, full of metaphors, clearly understandable, pleasing to hear, it was delightful, it was meaningful and grave, and without any doubt, it was completely faultless, and it was for the benefit of all. Okay, so now I can turn off noise suppression now. Kirtan's just finished. Okay. What am I doing? Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 21. Okay. And we're on verse 21. Chapter 21, verse 21. Rajavacha sabhyashnuta bhadram sadavo ya ihagata satsu jigyasu birdharmam avedam samanishitam. King Pṛthu said, O gentle members of the assembly, may all good fortune be upon you. May all of you great souls who have come to attend this meeting kindly hear my prayer attentively. A person who is actually inquisitive must present his decision before an assembly of noble souls. Hey, I could just have this open right here and then I can see your comments as I'm reading. But then this text will get smaller. Oh, it's getting cut off? Huh. Strange. Okay, I'm going to make this full screen. Maybe it won't get cut off now. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, the word sadhava, all great souls, is very significant. When a person is very great and famous, many unscrupulous persons become his enemies. For envy is the nature of materialists. In any meeting, there are different classes of men, and it is to be supposed, therefore, that because Pṛthu Mahārāja was very great, he must have had several enemies present in the assembly, although they could not express themselves. Maharaj Pṛthu, however, was concerned with persons who were gentle, and therefore he first addressed to all the honest persons, not caring for the envious. He did not, however, present himself as a royal authority empowered to command everyone, for he wanted to present his statement in humble submission before the assembly of great sages and saintly persons. As a great king of the entire world, he could have given them orders, but he was so humble, meek, and honest that he presented his statement for approval in order to clarify his mature decision. Everyone within this material world is conditioned by the modes of material nature, and therefore has 4 defects. But although Pṛthu Mahārāja was above all these, still, like an ordinary conditioned soul, he presented his statements to the great souls, sages, and saintly persons present there. Aham danda dharo raja prajanam ihayojita rakshita vrittida sveshu setushu stapita pratak. King Pṛthu continued, "By the grace of the Supreme Lord, I have been appointed the king of this planet, and I carry the scepter to rule the citizens, protect them from all danger, and give them employment according to their respective positions in the social order established by Vedic injunction." Purport: a king is supposed to be appointed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to look after the interests of his particular planet. On every planet there should be a predominating person, just as we now see that in every country there is a president. If one is president or king, it should be understood that this opportunity has been given to him by the Supreme Lord. According to the Vedic system, the king is considered a representative of Godhead, and is offered respects by the citizens as God in the human form of life. Actually, according to Vedic information, the Supreme Lord maintains all living entities, and especially human beings, to elevate them to the highest perfection. After many, many births in lower species, when a living entity evolves to the human form of life, and in particular the civilized human form of life, his society must be divided into 4 gradations, as ordered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in Bhagavad Gita, Chaturvarnyam Maya Shrishtam, etc. The 4 social orders, the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, are natural divisions of human society, as declared by Pṛthu Mahārāja. Every man in his respective social order must have proper employment for his livelihood. And, as declared by Pṛthu Mahārāja, it is the duty of the king or the government to ensure that the people observe the social order and that they are also employed in their respective occupational duties. In modern times, since the protection of the government or the king has been withdrawn, social order has practically collapsed. No one knows who is a Brahmin, who is a Kshatriya, who is a Vaishya, and who is a Shudra, and people claim to belong to a particular social order by birthright only. It is the duty of the governments to re-establish social order in terms of occupational duties and the modes of material nature, for that will make the entire world population actually civilized. If it does not observe the institutional functions of the 4 social orders, human society is no better than animal society, in which there is never tranquility, peace, prosperity, but only chaos and confusion. Maharaj Pṛthu, as an ideal king, strictly observed the maintenance of this Vedic social order. Prajayate iti praja. The word praja refers to one who takes birth. Therefore, Pṛthu Mahārāja guaranteed protection for the prajanam, all living entities who took birth in his kingdom. Praja refers not only to human beings, but also to animals, trees, and every other living entity. It is the duty of the king to give all living entities protection and food. The fools and rascals of modern society have no knowledge of the extent of the responsibility of the government. Animals are also citizens of the land in which they happen to be born, and they also have the right to continue their existence at the cost of the Supreme Lord. The disturbance of the animal population by wholesale slaughter produces a catastrophic future reaction for the butcher, his land, and his government. Tasya me taranushtanar yanahor brahmavadina lokasyu kamasandoha yasya tushyati dishtadrik. Maharaj Pṛthu said, I think that upon the execution of my duties as a king, I shall be able to achieve the desirable objectives expressed by the experts in Vedic knowledge. This destination is certainly achieved by the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the seer of all destiny. Purport. Maharaj Pṛthu gives special stress to the word Brahmavadina, by the experts in Vedic knowledge. Brahma refers to the Vedas, which are also known as Shabda Brahma, or transcendental sound. Transcendental sound is not ordinary language, although it appears to be written in ordinary language. Evidence from the Vedic literature should be accepted as final authority. In the Vedic literature, there is much information, and of course there is information about the execution of a king's duty. A responsible king who executes his appointed duty by giving proper protection to all living entities on his planet is promoted to the heavenly planetary system. This is also dependent on the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. It is not that if one executes his duty properly, he is automatically promoted. For promotion depends upon the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It must ultimately be concluded that one can achieve the desired result of his activities upon satisfying the Supreme Lord. This is also confirmed in the first canto, second chapter of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Verse 13. Ata pumbir dvijasheshta varnashram vibhagasha svanushtittasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam. The perfection of one's execution of his appointed duties is the ultimate satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. The word kama sandoha means achievement of the desired result. Everyone desires to achieve the ultimate goal of life, but in modern civilization, the great scientists think that man's life has no plan. This gross intelligence is very dangerous and makes civilization very risky. People do not know the laws of nature, which are the rulings of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because they are atheists of the first order, they have no faith in the existence of God and His rulings, and therefore do not know how nature is working. This gross ignorance of the mass of people, including even the so-called scientists and philosophers, makes life a risky situation in which human beings do not know whether they are making progress in life. According to Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 7.5.30, they are simply progressing to the darkest region of material existence. Adanta gobir vishitam tamisram. The Krishna consciousness movement has therefore been started to give philosophers, scientists, and people in general the proper knowledge about the destiny of life. Everyone should take advantage of this movement and learn the real goal of life. Ya udharit karang raja praja dharmeshva ashikshayam prajanam shamalam bhunkte bhagam cha swam jahati sa. Any king who does not teach his citizens about their respective duties in terms of varna and ashram, but who simply exacts tolls and taxes from them, is liable to suffer for the impious activities which have been performed by the citizens. In addition to such degradation, the king also loses his own fortune. Purport. A king, governor, or president should not take the opportunity to occupy his post without also discharging his duty. He must teach the people within the state how to observe the divisions of varna and ashram. If a king neglects to give such instructions and is simply satisfied with levying taxes, then those who share in the collection, namely all the government servants and the head of the state, are liable to share in the impious activities of the general masses. The laws of nature are very subtle. For example, if one eats in a place which is very sinful, he shares in the resultant reaction of the sinful activities performed there. Whoa, that's scary. It is a Vedic system. Therefore, for a householder to call Brahmins and Vaishnavas to eat at ceremonial performances in his house, because the Brahmins and Vaishnavas can immunize them. Oh God. It is a Vedic system, therefore, for a householder to call Brahmins and Vaishnavas to eat at ceremonial performances in his house, because the Brahmins and Vaishnavas can immunize him from sinful activities. But it is not the duty of rigid Brahmins and Vaishnavas to accept invitations everywhere. There is, of course, no objection to taking part in feasts in which prasad is distributed. There are many subtle laws which are practically unknown to people in general, but the Krishna consciousness movement is very scientifically distributing all this Vedic knowledge for the benefit of the people of the world. Tat praja bhartripindartam svartam evanasuyava kurta dhokshajagdhiyas tarhi menu graha krita. Pṛthu Mahārāja continued, Therefore, my dear citizens, for the welfare of your king after his death, you should execute your duties properly in terms of your positions of Varna and Ashram, and should always think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead within your hearts. By doing so, you will protect your own interests, and you will bestow mercy upon your king for his welfare after death. Purport. The words adhokshajdiya, meaning Krishna consciousness, are very important in this verse. The king and citizens should both be Krishna conscious, the king and the citizens. Otherwise, both of them will be doomed to lower species of life after death. A responsible government must teach Krishna consciousness very vigorously for the benefit of all. Without Krishna consciousness, neither the state nor the citizens of the state can be responsible. Pṛthu Mahārāja therefore specifically requested the citizens to act in Krishna consciousness, and he was also very anxious to teach him how to become Krishna conscious. A summary of Krishna consciousness is given in Bhagavad Gita 9.27. Yat karoshi yarasnashi, yajuhoshi dadasi yat, yat tapasyasi konteya tat kurushva mararpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you give in charity, and whatever penances you undergo should be done in Krishna consciousness, or for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If all the people of the state, including the government servants, are taught the techniques of spiritual life, then, although everyone is liable to be punished in different ways by the stringent laws of material nature, they will not be implicated. Text 26. Yuyam taranumodadvam pitri devarshayo mala kartu shastur anugyatus tulyam yat pretatat phalam. I request all the pure-hearted demigods, forefathers and saintly persons to support my proposal. For after death, the result of an action is equally shared by its doer, its director, and its supporter. Purport. The government of Pṛthu Mahārāja was perfect, because it was administered exactly according to the orders of the Vedic injunctions. Pṛthu Mahārāja has already explained that the chief duty of the government is to see that everyone executes his respective duty and is elevated to the platform of Krishna consciousness. The government should be so conducted that automatically one is elevated to Krishna consciousness. King Pṛthu therefore wanted his citizens to cooperate fully with him, for if they assented, they would enjoy the same profit as he after death. If Pṛthu Mahārāja, as a perfect king, were elevated to the heavenly planets, the citizens who cooperated by approving of his methods would also be elevated with him. Since the Krishna consciousness movement going on at the present moment is genuine, perfect, and authorized, and is following in the footsteps of Pṛthu Mahārāja, anyone who cooperates with this movement or accepts its principles will get the same result as the workers who are actively propagating Krishna consciousness. Asti yagyapatir nama keshanchir arha sattama ihamutra chalakshante jyotsna vatya kvachir bhuva. My dear respectable ladies and gentlemen, according to the authoritative statements of Shastra, there must be a supreme authority who is able to award the respective benefits of our present activities. Otherwise, why should there be persons who are unusually beautiful and powerful, both in this life and in the life after death? Purport. Pṛthu Mahārāja's sole aim in ruling his kingdom was to raise the citizens to the standard of God consciousness. Since there was a great assembly in the arena of sacrifice, there were different types of men present, but he was especially interested in speaking to those who were not atheists. It has already been explained in the previous verses that Pṛthu Mahārāja advised the citizens to become adhokshaja, which means God consciousness, or Krishna conscious. And in this verse he specifically presents the authority of Shastra, even though his father was a number one atheist who did not abide by the injunctions mentioned in the Vedic Shastras, who practically stopped all sacrificial performances, and who so disgusted the Brahmins that they did not only dethrone him, but cursed and killed him. Atheistic men do not believe in the existence of God, and thus they understand everything which is happening in our daily affairs to be due to physical arrangements and chance. Atheists believe in the atheistic Sankhya philosophy of the combination of Prakriti and Purush. They believe only in matter and hold that matter under certain conditions of amalgamation. And they hold that matter under certain conditions of amalgamation gives rise to the living force, which then appears as Purush, the enjoyer. Then, by a combination of matter and the living force, the many varieties of material manifestation come into existence. Nor do atheists believe in the injunctions of the Vedas. Anyways, is there a sentence missing here? Should I look in my book? I'm just going to continue on. According to them, according to the atheists, according to them, all the Vedic injunctions are simply theories that have no practical application in life. Taking all this into consideration, Pṛthu Mahārāja suggested that theistic men will solidly reject the views of the atheists on the grounds that there cannot be many varieties of existence without the plan of a superior intelligence. Atheists very vaguely explain that these varieties of existence occur simply by chance, but the theists who believe in the injunctions of the Vedas must reach all their conclusions under the direction of the Vedas. In the Vishnu Purana, it is said that the entire Varnashram institution is meant to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The rules and regulations set up for the execution of the duties of Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, or Brahmacharis, Grihastas, Vanaprasthas, and Sannyasis, are all meant to satisfy the Supreme Lord. At the present moment, although the so-called Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras have lost their original culture, they claim to be Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras by birthright. Yet they have rejected the proposition that such social and spiritual orders are especially meant for worship of Lord Vishnu. The dangerous Mayavad theory set forth by Shankaracharya that God is impersonal does not tally with the injunctions of the Vedas. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore described the Mayavadi philosophers as the greatest offenders against the personality of Godhead. According to the Vedic system, one who does not abide by the orders of the Vedas is called a Nastik, or an atheist. When Lord Buddha preached his theory of nonviolence, he was obliged to deny the authority of the Vedas, and for this reason he was considered by the followers of the Vedas to be Nastik. But although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very clearly enunciated that the followers of Lord Buddha's philosophies are Nastiks, or atheists, because of their denial of the authority of the Vedas, he considered the Shankarites, who wanted to establish Vedic authority by trickery and who actually followed the Mayavad philosophy of Buddha's school, to be even more dangerous than the Buddhists themselves. The Shankarite philosopher's theory that we have to imagine a shape of God is more dangerous than the denial of the existence of God. Notwithstanding all the philosophical theorizing by atheists or Mayavadis, the followers of Krishna consciousness rigidly live according to the injunction given in the Bhagavad Gita, which is accepted as the essence of all Vedic scripture. In Bhagavad Gita 18:46, it is said, Yata pravrittir bhutanam yena sarvam idam tatam sakarmana tamabhyarcha siddhim vindati manava. By worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings and who is all-pervading, man can, in the performance of his own duty, attain perfection. This indicates that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the original source of everything, as described in the Vedanta Sutra, Janma Dasya Yata. The Lord himself also confirms in Bhagavad Gita, Aham Sarvasva Prabhava, I am the origin of everything. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the original source of all emanations, and at the same time, as Paramatma, he is spread all over existence. The Absolute Truth is therefore the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And every living being is meant to satisfy the Supreme Godhead by performing his respective duty. So karmanatam abhyarcha. Maharaj Pṛthu wanted to introduce this formula amongst his citizens. The most important point in human civilization is that while one engages in different occupational duties, he must try to satisfy the Supreme Lord by the execution of such duties. That is the highest perfection of life. Svanushthitasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam. By discharging one's prescribed duty, one can become very successful in life if he simply satisfies the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The vivid example is Arjuna. He was a Kshatriya. His duty was to fight, and by executing his prescribed duty, he satisfied the Supreme Lord and therefore became perfect. Everyone should follow this principle. The atheists who do not are condemned in Bhagavad Gita 16:19 by the following statement. Tam aham dishata kruran sangshareshu naradhanam. In this verse, it is clearly said that persons who are envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are the lowest of mankind and are very mischievous. Under the regulative principles of the Supreme, such mischievous persons are thrown into the darkest region of material existence and are born of asuras, or atheists. Birth after birth, such asuras go still further down, finally to animal forms like those of tigers or similar ferocious beasts. Thus, for millions of years, they have to remain in darkness without knowledge of Krishna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is known as Purushottam, or the best of all living entities. He is a person like all other living entities, but he is the leader, or the best of all living beings. That is stated in the Vedas also. Nitya Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam. Chaitanas Chaitanam. He is the chief of all eternals, the chief of all living entities, and he is complete and full. He has no need to derive benefit by interacting with the affairs of other living entities, but because he is the maintainer of all, he has the rights to bring them to the proper standard so that all living entities may become happy. A father wants all of his children to become happy under his direction. Similarly, God, or Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has the rights to see that all living entities are happy. There is no possibility of becoming happy within this material world. The Father and the Sons are eternal, but if a living entity does not come to the platform of his eternal life of bliss and knowledge, there is no question of happiness. Although Purushottam, the best of all living entities, has no benefits to derive from the common living entities, he does have the right to discriminate between their right and wrong ways. The right way is the path of activities meant to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as we have already discussed. Svanushthitasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam. Oh, 1 second, let me stretch. A living entity may engage in any occupational duty, but if he wants to have perfection in his duties, he must satisfy the Supreme Lord. As such, one who pleases him gets better facilities for living, but one who displeases him gets involved in undesirable situations. It is therefore concluded that there are two kinds of duties, mundane duty and duty performed for the sake of yajna, or sacrifice, yagyartat karma. Any karma, any activity one performs which is not for the purpose of yajna, is a cause of bondage. Yagyartat karmanon yatra lokayam karma bandhana. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work binds one to this material world. Bhagavad Gita 3:9. Karma bandhana. All the bondage of karma, which is administered in order to, karma bandhana, or the bondage of karma, is, I'm going to stand up for a second. Not for a second, for a little while. Let me finish this purport first. Karma bandhana, or the bondage of karma, is administered under the regulations of the stringent laws of material nature. Material existence is a struggle to conquer the impediments put forth by material nature. The asuras are always fighting to overcome these impediments. And by the illusory power of material nature, the foolish living entities work very hard within this material world and take this to be happiness. This is called Maya. In that hard struggle for existence, they deny the existence of the Supreme Authority, Purushottam, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Wow, this is such a long purport. In order to regulate the activities of the living entities, God has given us codes, just as a king gives codes of law in a state, and whoever breaks the law is punished. Similarly, the Lord has given the infallible knowledge of the Vedas, which are not contaminated by the 4 defects of human life, namely the tendency to commit mistakes, Brahma, Pramad, Vipralipsa, Karanapatav. Brahma, the tendency to commit mistakes, Pramad, to be illusioned, Vipralipsa, cheat, and Karanapatav, to have imperfect senses. If we do not take direction from the Vedas, but act whimsically and according to our own choice, we will be sure to be punished by the laws of the Lord, who offers different types of bodies in the 8,400,000 species of forms. Material existence, or the sense gratification process, is conducted according to the type of body we are given by Prakriti, or material nature. As such, there must be divisions of pious and impious activities, punya and pap. In Bhagavad Gita 7:28, it is clearly stated, Yesham tvantagatam papam jnaninam punya karmanam te dvandva mohanirmukta bhajante mam dridhavrata. One who has completely surpassed the resultant activities of the impious path of life. This is possible only when one engages exclusively in pious activities. So that person who surpassed all the resultant activities of the impious path of life can understand his eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, one engages in the Lord's transcendental loving service. This life of engaging is always in the loving service of the Lord. This life engaging always in the loving service of the Lord is called Adhokshaja, or a life of Krishna consciousness, which King Pṛthu meant his citizens to follow. Okay, now I'm going to stand up. Oh, Krishna. The different varieties of life and of material existence do not come about by chance and necessity. They are different arrangements made by the Supreme Lord in terms of the pious and impious activities of the living entities. By performing pious activities, one can take birth in a good family and a good nation. One can get a beautiful body, or can become very well educated or very rich. We see, therefore, that in different places and in different planets, there are different standards of life, bodily features, and educational stratuses, all awarded by the Supreme Personality of Godhead according to pious or impious activities. Varieties of life, therefore, develop not by chance, but by pre-arrangement. There is a plan which is already outlined in the Vedic knowledge. One has to take advantage of this knowledge and mold his life in such a way that, at the end, especially in the human form of life, he may go back home, back to Godhead, by practicing Krishna consciousness. The theory of chance can be best explained in the Vedic literature by the words agyata sukriti, which refers to pious activities performed without the actor's knowledge. But these are also planned. For example, Krishna comes like an ordinary human being. He comes as a devotee like Lord Chaitanya, or he sends his representative, the spiritual master or pure devotee. This is also the planned activity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They come to canvass and educate, and thus a person in the illusory energy of the Supreme Lord gets a chance to mix with them, talk with them, and take lessons from them. And somehow or other, if a conditioned soul surrenders to such personalities and by intimate association with them chances to become Krishna conscious, he is saved from the material conditions of life. Krishna therefore instructs, Sarva dharma parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja aham tang sarva papebhyo mokshayishami ma suchaha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reaction. Do not fear. Bhagavad Gita 1866. The word sarva papebhya means from all sinful activities. A person who surrenders unto him by utilizing the chance to associate with the pure devotee, spiritual master, or other authorized incarnations of Godhead, like Pṛthu Mahārāja, is saved by Krishna. Then his life becomes successful. Wow, I think that was the longest purport we've read yet. There's a line missing here. So let's go to database. Oh, Krishna. Where is it? Did I go to the wrong chapter? No. Sorry. Oh God. 28-29. Oh. Manorutanapadasya dhruvasyapi mahipate priyavratasya rajarsher angasyasmat pitu edrishanamathanyesham ajasya cha bhavasya cha praladasya baleshchapi kritamasti gadabrita. And I just want to see quickly what verse we're reading up to. We're reading up to verse 30. Okay. This is confirmed not only by the evidence of the Vedas. Wait, I forgot what Pṛthu Mahārāja said. Let's see. In the previous verse, Pṛthu Mahārāja says, My dear respectable ladies and gentlemen, according to the authoritative statements of Shastra, there must be a supreme authority who is able to reward the respective benefits of our present activities. Otherwise, why should there be persons who are unusually beautiful and powerful, both in this life and a life after death? This is confirmed not only by the evidence of the Vedas, but also by the personal behavior of great personalities like Manu, Uttanapad, Dhruva, Priyavrata, and my grandfather Anga, as well as many other great personalities and ordinary living entities, exemplified by Maharaj Prahlad and Bali, all of whom are theists, believing in the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead who carries a club. Purport. Narottam Das Thakur states that one has to ascertain the right path for his activities by following in the footsteps of great saintly persons and books of knowledge under the guidance of a spiritual master. Sadhu Shastra Guru Vakya. A saintly person is one who follows the Vedic injunctions, which are the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The word Guru refers to one who gives proper direction under the authority of the Vedic injunctions and according to the examples of the lives of great personalities. The best way to mold one's life is to follow in the footsteps of the authorized personalities like those mentioned herein by Pṛthu Mahārāja, beginning with Swayambhuva Manu. The safest path in life is to follow such great personalities, especially those mentioned in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. The Mahajans, or great personalities, are Brahma, Lord Shiva, Narad Muni, Manu, the Kumaras, Prahlad Maharaj, Bali Maharaj, Yamaraj, Bhishma, Janak, Shukadeva Goswami and Kapila Muni. Dohitra dinrite mrityor Shochan dharma vimohitan Varga swarga pavarganam prayenaikatmahetunam. Although abominable persons like my father Vain, the grandson of death personified, are bewildered on the path of religion, all the great personalities like those mentioned, agree that in this world the only bestower of the benedictions of religion, economic development, sense gratification, liberation, or elevation to the heavenly planets is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. King Vain, the father of Pṛthu Mahārāja, was condemned by the Brahmins and saintly persons because of his denying the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and rejecting the method of satisfying him by performance of Vedic sacrifice. In other words, he was an atheist who did not believe in the existence of God and who consequently stopped all Vedic ritualistic ceremonies in his kingdom. Pṛthu Mahārāja considered King Vain's character abominable because Vain was foolish regarding the execution of religious performances. Atheists are of the opinion that there is no need to accept the authority of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be successful in religion, economic development, sense gratification, or liberation. According to them, dharma, or religious principles, are meant to establish an imaginary God to encourage one to become moral, honest, and just, so that the social orders may be maintained in peace and tranquility. Furthermore, they say that actually there's no need to accept God for this purpose, for if one follows the principles of morality and honesty, that is sufficient. Similarly, if one makes nice plans and works very hard for economic development, automatically the result of economic development will come. Similarly, sense gratification also does not depend on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For if one earns enough money by any process, one will have sufficient opportunity for sense gratification. Insofar as liberation is concerned, they say that there is no need to talk of liberation because after death, everything is finished. Pṛthu Mahārāja, however, did not accept the authority of such atheists headed by his father, who is the grandson of death personified. Generally, a daughter inherits the qualities of her father, and a son gets the qualities of his mother. Thus, Mritu's daughter Sunita got all the qualities of her father, and Vain inherited the qualities of his mother. A person who is always subjected to the rules and regulations of repeated birth and death cannot accommodate anything beyond materialistic ideas. Since King Vain was such a man, he did not believe in the existence of God. Modern civilization agrees with the principles of King Vain, but factually, if we scrutinizingly study all the conditions of religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation, we must accept the principles of the authority of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. According to Vedic literature, religion consists only of the codes of law given by God. If one does not accept the authority of the Supreme Godhead in matters of religion and morality, one must explain why two persons of the same moral standard achieve different results. It is generally found that even if two men have the same moral standards of ethics, honesty, and morality, their positions are not the same. Similarly, in economic development, it is seen that if two men work very hard day and night, still the results are not the same. One person may enjoy great opulence without even working, whereas another person, although working very hard, does not even get 2 sufficient meals a day. Similarly, in the matter of sense gratification, sometimes one who has sufficient food is still not happy in his family affairs, or sometimes is not even married, whereas another person, even though not economically well off, has the greatest opportunity for sense gratification. Even an animal like a hog or a dog may have greater opportunities for sense gratification than a human being. Aside from liberation, even if we consider only the preliminary necessities of life, dharma, artha, and kama, religion, economic development, and sense gratification, we will see that they are not the same for everyone. Therefore, it must be accepted that there is someone who determines the different standards. In conclusion, not only for liberation must one depend on the Lord, but even for ordinary necessities in the material world. Pṛthu Mahārāja therefore indicated that in spite and having rich parents, children are sometimes not happy. Similarly, in spite of valuable medicine administered by a competent physician, sometimes a patient dies. Or in spite of having a big safe boat, sometimes a man drowns. The Titanic. We may thus struggle to counteract impediments offered by material nature, but our attempts cannot be successful unless we are favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All right, that's our reading for today. And tomorrow, let's see. We read up to what verse? 30. So tomorrow we'll read devotional service. Now he's going to talk about bhakti. Devotional service cleanses one's mind. By one's inclination to serve the Lord's feet, the contamination in the mind acquired over innumerable births is immediately cleansed, and day by day one's spiritual inclination increases. It is like the purification done by the Ganges water emanating from the Lord's toe. A devotee whose mind has been cleansed of unlimited contamination, who has developed detachment and is strengthened by bhakti yoga, who has taken shelter of the Lord's feet, again, does not surrender to material life full of suffering. Okay, great. So tomorrow is all bhakti. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jai Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju ki Jai. Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju ki Jai. Nitil Pravishna Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Shila Guru Dev ki Jai. Nitil Pravishna Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj ki Jai. Nitil Pravishna Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shila Prabhupada ki Jai. Nitil Pravishna Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Shila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj ki Jai. Nitil Pravishna Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Shila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada ki Jai. Nitil Pravishna Mahābhagavat Shila Gorksharas Babaji Maharaj ki Jai. Nitil Pravishna Shila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki Jai. Nitil Pravishna Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki Jai. Shri Rupanuv Gauriya Guru Varga ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Patadasha Raghunath Sharda Gosai Prabhu ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanantari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki Jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj ki Jai. Shri Radha Kun Shama Kun ki Jai. Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi ki Jai. Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya ki Jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai. Shri Akshay Tritiya ki Jai. Shri God, what are all the things? First day of Satya Yuga ki Jai. Also first day of Treta Yuga. Shri Parshuram Jayanti ki Jai. Shri what? Oh, opening the doors of Badri Narayan Temple ki Jai. Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti ki Jai. Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti's 80th anniversary. Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Shinitai Gaur Primanande Hari Hari Bo. Oh, Shri Chandanyatra ki Jai. How could I forget that? That's the most important one. Chandanyatra ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra Ju ki Jai. Hari Bo. Vrindai Tulsi Devai. Priyai Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Satyavataya Namo Namaha. Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandava Pranams. I'm trying something for this Akshay Tritiya. So two things. One thing is I want to write every day because that gets me to think. Otherwise, I'm pretty mindless. So yeah, that's one thing is writing. And another thing is getting sufficient amount of sleep. And not just getting a sufficient amount of sleep, but sleeping at the right times also. I think if I can master sleeping, then everything else will be better. I'll be able to wake up really early and awake, and I'll be able to chant in the morning time and not have to sleep in the morning. And also I'm reading a book right now called, I think it's called Why We Sleep, and it was written by this guy who's been studying sleep. I think he might even have a PhD on this topic. He's been studying it for like 20 years now. I think it's probably one of the most authoritative books, with like the most scientific research and everything on sleep, and the benefits of it. It's actually pretty amazing. It's one of the best things we can do for our immune system, for our creativity even, for memorization. It's so important and for so many reasons. And I think that's why even in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, you can't attain perfection in yoga if you sleep too much or if you sleep too little. And I think devotees put too much emphasis on, I think devotees don't put enough emphasis on the sleeping too little part. I always hear devotees, like everybody's talking, everybody's like guilty about sleeping. I see it all the time, and everybody tries to sleep as little as possible, but that's also unfavorable for bhakti. And so I'm trying a thing right now. If you see behind my head, I wrote sleep allowance. And so I'm just I'm writing what time I'm going to go to sleep. And even if I don't fall asleep, I'm just going to allow myself to be able to sleep during that time. And hopefully, yes, Rup Manjari, it is Matthew Walker. Yes. Oh, you know him personally? That's really cool. Yeah, that's the person of Matthew Walker. Anyhow, so yeah, that's my one big thing I'm trying to do. Like all. I mean, according to Matthew Walker, everybody should have 8 hours of sleep. That's really difficult because, I mean, my program, like the evening program we do ends at 9, like past 9 o'clock. Last night I ended at 9:20, and so then I closed my computer right after. I didn't respond to any messages. I didn't do anything. I just closed my computer, and then I laid down at 10 o'clock. And because I'm not in the habit, I just laid awake for a really long time. But then I woke up before Mangalarti. I was able to take bath, which I haven't done in a long time. Usually I just go to Mangalarti without having taken a bath. And this whole morning I was feeling awake. I chanted a bunch, and I wrote something even, and I just had a great morning this morning. It felt so wonderful, even though I wasn't even able to get a full 6 hours of sleep last night. So I think if I'm going to keep on working at this, I'm going to try to force myself not to sleep in the day so that I'm tired at night. Anyways, I'm going to like really make a big effort. Like I'm making it a really big deal for me, and hopefully I'll be able to master this art of sleep. Sorry about talking about myself so much, but I'm just mentioning this in case anybody else also wants to try it. If they haven't mastered the art of sleeping yet, we can. I like doing things with other people. Otherwise, when I do things just by myself, I can get away with anything. But when I do it with other people, it makes it a lot more fun, and there's accountability. So that's why you see behind my head, I'm writing what time I go to sleep and what time I wake up, and I'm going to keep track of how many hours I sleep and make sure that I at least get 7 hours. So I guess today that means I have to sleep an hour in a day. Yeah. Anyhow, all right. Yes, and so that's why a nap is important. Yes, but also I think according to Matthew Walker, it's not good to sleep, to nap more than an hour. Because, or maybe even he said 45 minutes. Because then you go into like this deeper sleep, the REM sleep. I haven't actually read that much. I just started the book, so I don't know so much yet. But yeah, you go into even a deeper sleep, and then that will take away your being able to fall asleep at night, because your body already experienced this like deep sleep. And so it is good to earn up the pressure to want to sleep at nighttime also. Anyhow, I don't know. I need to. That's why I need to. I'm studying this book. I want to become a sleep expert. I'll share anything that I learn also if anybody's interested. Yes, and it's good to nap before 2 p.m. That's another thing that he said. It's very bad to sleep after 2 p.m. He said 3 p.m. I think, but probably 2 p.m. is good also. Yeah. Yeah, if you sleep before 2 p.m., then you won't be asleep at 3 p.m. All right. Haribol. Oh, and Dita Mataji may go for some daily writing. Yeah, writing is so helpful. Writing is so helpful. It's one of the most helpful things for me, actually, because otherwise I just passively do everything without any thought and no reflection, and I just go on. And thinking, it makes everything official, and it brings out things that you didn't even know that were inside of you, and it just makes it brings clarity to everything, So I think those two things is going to be so beneficial for me, writing and sleeping. Anyhow, I've talked enough. Jai Shri Radhe, Haribol. If anybody wants to do anything also, we can help keep each other accountable. The way I'm keeping myself accountable is for sleeping, writing on the board every day, my hours of sleep, and by posting what I write on Facebook for 100 days. I'm doing a 100-day challenge right now. And those are the two ways that I'm hoping I'll be able to stick through it, because I've not yet been able to stick with sleeping or writing, even though I've tried many times. So I'm hoping this Akshaya Tritiya, for the first time in my life, I'll actually be successful. Let's see. Let's pray. Haribol.